In this video, let's take an overview on the speaking module of Toefl. Let's take an introduction. Now, the speaking section of Toefl IBT exam basically tests on how effectively you can communicate in different situations. So earlier, you had 6 tasks in the Toefl exam and that would last for about 20 minutes. But now the pattern has changed. You only have 4 tasks and the duration of the exam is 17 minutes. You have to speak into a microphone which will record your voice, and your test recording would be then evaluated by an official test grader. Your responses would be scored on different aspects. The examiner would be, testing on your grammatical range and accuracy, your oral fluency, your language, your vocabulary, etc. So you are graded on a scale of 0 to 4, with 4 as a near perfect response. So although the speaking section test is basically the shortest part of the test for only 17 minutes, but definitely it's not as easy as it looks, and it has a good weightage. It's very important. Now, the Toefl test is administered in 2 formats. It's usually administered via the internet, which measures on all the 4 academic English skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. But there are some places, some remote areas where the internet would not be easily available, so it is not possible to go for internet testing. So in that case, they exclude the speaking section because of the technology required to capture the spoken responses, and all the other sections are closely aligned with the actual Toefl IBT tests. But mostly, in fact, the students they prefer to go for Toefl IBT test, which would test on all the 4 skills. Now, let's understand the speaking structure and the difference between how the exam used to be conducted earlier and now what is the current pattern of the Toefl exam. So initially, you would have about 6 Toefl, speaking tasks. You would have the task 1, which was an independent task. The task 2 is again independent. Then we have 3 to 4 integrated tasks. So total we would have 6 tasks. Whereas in the present examination pattern, the first task has been removed and the 5th task has been removed. We have 3 integrated tasks and we have 1 independent task. The second and third integrated task would test you on your reading and listening abilities, whereas the 4th integrated task would only involve you to listen to the audio. Now let's try to understand what are these 2 tasks in your speaking module. The speaking section includes of 2 types of questions. You have independent questions and integrated questions. So your integrated, Toefl speaking topics, they are based on academic topic. So as the word suggests, integrated, that means it would, involve more than one function, taken together in the task. So it would integrate reading and or listening with speaking. So you could have a task which would ask you to read something and then speak out your response, or probably you would have a task which would require you to read out some text and then listen to some audio and then speak your response. So your integrated speaking tasks are based on varied topics with respect to listening and reading, and your response would basically test on whether you're able to cover all the important ideas that have been covered in the lecture or in the text. So the content is very important, and you should not go about covering all the irrelevant details and skipping the important ones, because you are definitely tested on the content, that you do not have to miss the important ideas. The next is the independent speaking task, which involves you to talk about your personal experiences, opinions, and ideas. So it basically tests on your ability on how effective you can communicate and you can express yourself and talk about yourself. Now let's try to understand the timing of the TOEFL exam. You would get about 15 seconds to prepare during the independent task and about 30 seconds to prepare your response in the integrated task. So, after you're prepared on your task in your independent speaking section, you would get about 45 seconds to read, and probably the audio will be also about the same length. Then you will have to speak for about 45 seconds. Similarly, in your integrated task, you would get about 45 seconds to speak on the integrated task, and after this your time record stops automatically. So through these tasks, examiner is basically testing you on different parameters. The four important components which are an important part of the evaluation are, exploring the topic, which means the examiner is going to check whether, whatever you are speaking is logical and all your ideas, examples, facts, or details are well connected and they are definitely picked up from what is given. You have to use the information which is given to you in your text or in your audio. You cannot use your personal knowledge or make assumptions. That is not allowed. Then you are tested on your vocabulary, where examiner would test you on your lexical resource. That means the range of words or the variety of sentences that you can use to form your sentences. That would also involve the use of synonyms and the variety of sentence structures as well. Then the third most important parameter is your oral fluency. You should pause less and you should ensure that you do not have a lot of breaks. If you have few pauses and it basically appears natural, it is definitely accepted. But if your pauses are long and it looks as if you are thinking for the content, or you are lacking the words, you're not able to connect your ideas together, then definitely that would reduce your band. Then overall impression is very important. You have to ensure that your response matches correctly with the task and the information which is given in the question has been used appropriately to give your response in the task. So there are a few challenges that we face in the speaking module. So one of the most important challenges is time management. Since you get only 15 seconds and to prepare on the independent task and 30 seconds to prepare on your integrated task, you may find it very less to maybe jot down all the points, go through them, and probably prepare your response. And then again, when you have only 45 seconds to prepare your response, you might realize that you are not able to cover all the important ideas. In that case, your band would go low. So time management is very important. You have to take care of your timeline and ensure that you are able to give your response in that stipulated time. Then concentration is very important. If you miss some important information and you go about going back to the topic when you missed some important part, you will not be able to include it in your response and definitely your band would go low. So you have to concentrate from the beginning till the end and ensure that you cover all the important ideas in your response. Then vocabulary is important. You should avoid repetition of words and ideas. You can probably use easy ways to create variety of sentences or words. You can use simple synonyms. You need not be worried about using complex vocabulary because that's not what the examiner is looking for. But definitely you should have a good hold over a range of words that you should use in your sentence formation. Then grammar plays an important role. If you go wrong with your tenses or subject verb agreement, then examiner will not be able to connect your words and points correctly, and the right meaning may not be conveyed to the examiner as intended. So grammatical range and accuracy plays a very crucial role to achieve a high band. Then answer traps. So it's very important to identify the challenges that you would face while giving your responses, because if you go about covering the irrelevant details, you would definitely lose out your on your points. Examiner would use different ways to confuse you and trick you, so you have to avoid those traps and give an accurate and appropriate answer to the task which is asked. So The last challenge is instructions. You have to read the instructions carefully. Sometimes you have some, you know, some preconceived ideas or words or vocabulary in your mind, and you do not read the instructions carefully, and deliberately examiner goes about changing the instructions, and that's where you get confused and you lose your points even knowing the answer, but because you didn't read the instructions carefully, you would lose your points unnecessarily. So these are the important challenges that you should go through, and I hope you got a good overview on the speaking module. In the upcoming videos, we would take each of these tasks in detail, understanding the overview, the challenges, the tips and strategies, and also go through few sample responses to understand how to get a good band in the speaking module. Thank you.